Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Professor Spira, and you are now plugged into the Mucus-free Life podcast, episode number 6. And I'm really excited about today's episode. We have a great guest that we are going to have some fun with in a little bit. A man by the name of Fathauer, and we're going to be talking about a number of topics that we don't normally talk about here. Some other people say, hey, all you guys ever talk about some Mucusless Diet? Well, we're going to be getting into some stuff that is takes living the Mucusless Diet to the next level. And give me a moment. Let me have some fun with check everything, make sure everything is going well. If you have access to the chat, feel free to say hi. If you are getting here, feel free to share this. Trying to get this podcast out far and wide to a lot more people. And if you do see any technical issues or something, let me know in the chat. And we are going to have some fun today. So, here in the United States, we just had something called the 4th of July. And I'm not going to get into the nutty history and all of that nonsense. Maybe we might touch on a little bit of that with Michael, because he's fairly knowledgeable about some of these things related to the so-called United States of America. And but what I like to look at is the insanity that happens during 4th of July, during many of the ritualistic periods of time when it seems as if within society people move from stimulant to stimulant to stimulant. And I'm not just talking about the food. The food goes along with it. But they move from Christmas to Easter. We got Halloween, 4th of July, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Every so often, there is some kind of pus-fueled celebration. And it's as if it gives people something to look forward to, because within this kind of society, for it to function, people have to be occupied. You can't give people too much time, like the masses of people. So if you have poor people that are going through it that don't have the power to be able to articulate their struggle, and it's real hard for them to kind of uprise, to be able to actually bring all of those folks together. They've done a wonderful job here in the U.S. of dividing people up by race, by socioeconomic status, by a number of various factors. People are well divided. And that is in the best interest of those who are perceived to be the ones who are wielding power, so-called power. Pus power. You know, you say, pus power. But in order for this to all work, it goes back to the old bread and circuses thing. You keep people occupied. Don't think. They use the term occupation for one's job. What's your occupation? Keeps you occupied. You're not spending time trying to work on your freedom if you're occupied. You're not taking you're not feeling the pain when you're occupied. You got your virtual reality, you got your TV with 1 million stations, your internet, all of this entertainment. You got your alcohol, totally available all over the place on every corner. And of course you got your food, cheap, nasty processed food that you can get 24 hours a day all over the place. And so 4th of July really represents, it's one of these times when we can really see the insanity, where sometimes even pus and mucus eaters that have no clue what we're talking about can look at some of the circumstances and say, yeah, this kind of nutty. As we, Brother Air was talking about a couple weeks ago, where he had to start complaining. We started saying, hey, this is important to us. Where people complain to us about all kinds of different things. When they're uncomfortable, we'll be sitting there eating some fruit or a salad, and somebody will start complaining with us and say, is that all you gonna eat? Is that you just gonna eat a salad? Is that you just having some fruit? Well, you need some meat. Why they complain to us, but then we're sheepish when it comes to saying, that dead carcass smells terrible. That dead carcass is making my life, is lowering my standard of life. Could you please put that away? Could you please keep that stench away from my nose? That gets a response. But when they do it, it's okay. When they're making fun of us for just eating fruits and eating an apple, walking around. I used to walk around with a bag of lettuce as if it was some kind of snack or something. That's out the question. But so without further ado, this week we have a Dockery segment, and he has a few stories for you, a lot of them relating to the 4th of July. So I think I'm going to turn it on over to Doc Dockery, who is the official Mucus-free life journalist, and has been with us for many years. He was back when we had the radio show Immortality Pipeline, and he is here with us again today. So I'm going to turn it on over to Mr. Doc Dockery.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Doc Dockery, and you are now listening to Bizarro World Headline News. A patient dies from fecal transplant containing drug-resistant bacteria. The donor stool had not been tested for the drug-resistant bacteria before the procedure, the FDA noted. One person has died. The FDA is warning healthcare providers that the use of feces for transplantation purposes can lead to serious or life-threatening infections. A 19-year-old was killed Thursday in a fireworks explosion in a residential neighborhood in East Fort Worth, Texas. In separate incidents, 2 young children and a man suffered minor injuries in other July 4th fireworks accidents in the city. Medical professionals are sharing the worst 4th of July accidents they've ever seen. It's all fun and games until somebody loses an eye. The 4th of July is a time for beer, barbecues, and fireworks. Good golly. But on a recent Reddit thread, medical practitioners have been telling stories which function as excellent reminders to practice caution over the holiday. Here are some of the worst injuries that doctors, nurses, and first responders have treated due to 4th of July incidents. Quote, I had a 9-year-old lose an eye a few years ago, recalls one commenter. An older kid shot a bottle rocket at him, and the bottle rocket hit him in the right eye. The globe ruptured from the explosion. I had to pack his eye socket with gauze in attempt to keep the rest of the globe together. But it was pretty obvious that the eye was a total loss. The other kid was prosecuted for the incident. I helped with this one as an intern a while ago, says another commentator. Some drunk guy was holding a mortar tube and firing it off. He put his hand over the tube to hopefully stop it from coming out. Ended up blowing up the majority of his hand and burned a hole in his abdomen. Somebody else who worked in a burn unit says they dread this particular holiday. Quote, every year there's a bunch of fireworks and grill and kitchen fire incidents coming in with something that could have been prevented or avoided if the people involved had just taken a few moments to realize what could go wrong with this idea. Hand open, there's just a little damage, but with a closed hand, yeah, anywhere from a few fingers to the majority of the whole hand is gone. So keep this in mind.
America!
And in happier news, Joey Chestnut eats 71 hot dogs to win Nathan's hot dog eating contest for the 12th time in a row. Joey Chestnut is an American hero, a competitive eating legend. And some of you may recall years ago, around 2006, is the first time that I actually reported on Mr. Chestnut, as he had won back then, and he's been winning ever since. This man is a winner.
He is the silent warrior who stands where land meets horizon.
Indeed.
Steadfast and unshakable.
Yes.
A city on a hill, lit for all to see.
The man, the myth, the legend. Give it up.
Using every
35 years of age, 230 pounds, 6'1".
He is a bead of light floating in the dark.
A bead of light floating in... Oh, my hero. Yes.
Fight until he is the last man standing on the dirt-covered surface of the earth.
The man, the myth, the legend. Ladies and gentlemen,
One nation under God, indivisible. The number one ranked eater in the world.
yeah.
74 hot dogs and buns. The Nathan's famous hot dog eating champion of the world. Joey Chestnut!
Yes. Give it up. Give it up. Get that man a massage. Get him a happy ending. Get him anything he wants. This man is a treasure. Kneel down. On one knee, genuflect. Kiss the ring.
United States of America!
Yeah.
From 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin!
We are off in the 103rd iteration of the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
Joey Chestnut, the man to beat.
Oh, that's just skill. So this is the last 26 seconds. Chestnut is at 68. He's eaten 68 hot dogs.
If he finishes it off and does it again,
In the previous year, he'd eaten 74.
nobody
And what's he going to do? The next guy closest is 48, Breeden. Might as well just give up.
lasted as long as Joey's. It's a dirty dozen for Chestnut.
Yes.
Number
Yes.
12 at Nathan.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the world, look on his works, ye mighty, and despair. He has surpassed the kings of Egypt.
I mean, that goes without saying. He surpassed the kings of Egypt. Come on.
Hot dogs and buns.
Yes.
12 victories in Coney Island. The champion of the world, Joey Chestnut.
It is a privilege to share the same country with this man.
Oh, it's just I was going for 75. I always love to get a new record. You look at everybody out here; they wanted a record, and they're out here standing in the heat. But we'll see. Hopefully next year I'll come back and I'll strategize and I'll figure out a way to do it.
The American treasure, Mr. Joey Chestnut. So I want to congratulate Mr. Chestnut for his service to this country. He is an American idol, a treasure, and doggone it, get this man a root beer. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Bizarre World Headline News. I'm Doc Dockery, and be unsafe out there.
All right. Well, that Doc Dockery he's a priceless addition to this podcast, and I appreciate all the work that he does to bring us this these important public interest stories, and we got to see a little bit of footage of some of the insanity of the so-called 4th of July festivities and traditions. And now you got to understand, I'm coming from a place of experience. Before practicing the Mucusless Diet growing up, I wasn't really big into messing around with fireworks, but I messed with fire in the Boy Scouts. We would the good thing about that was you had people around that were teaching you how to be safe with it, but then you would still go off and mess around with it. So there's some things I did back then that was not very, very smart when it came to fire. But I did almost get injured with somebody else messing around with fireworks, just like in one of those videos. I was at a backyard party. This was maybe senior year of high school, and I was like, man, y'all need to stop messing around with those. And these kids these guys that kept on messing around, and they set one off, and it went kind of like by my head. And back then, I was a 250-pound football player, so I looked at these dudes and they ran away because I was mad, and they didn't want to be injured, because I probably would have did a worse job than if they would have got hit with that firecracker themselves. So I'm coming from a place of experience. My goal is to expose the reality in a way that most people have not thought about or seen it. Because when you practice the Mucusless Diet healing system for long enough, you start going down these plant-based paths, if it leads to the Mucusless Diet, eventually you're going to start to see the world differently. Things that used to make perfect sense no longer make any sense. And the kind of logic that you are now using, the kind of wisdom that you're now espousing, is totally rejected by people that are listening to you. A lot of people closest to you don't want to hear nothing about it. They don't want none of that. You might be saying the most rational stuff in the world when it comes to healing, physiology, physiological liberation, and You might as well just go and set off a firecracker, blow your hand off, because they don't want to hear it. So I try to do things that unveil, show the absurdity, show the ignorance, show the stupidity in something that I used to be a part of. And so it's not to just say, like it's us versus them. It's saying, no, it's us versus us, and as many of us as possible need to wake up, because this ridiculous, this insanity that we're dealing with here. So hopefully you enjoyed that little segment. Now, without further ado, I want to bring on our guest for today. This is Michael Adam Fathauer, and I met him last year at the Eric Day celebration. He came up and got a chance to just really hang out with him and talk. And since then, we've been doing a lot of work on Facebook. He helps out with running the Facebook group and a number of other things. And so let me go ahead and bring Adam on, or not Adam, but Michael Adam Fathauer. Let's bring him on. Say what's up. What's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing? I was just smiling about Adam. The funny thing is, my name was supposed to be Adam, but somebody in my family, we can tie this into mucus and pus. Someone in my family actually jumped off the Skyway Bridge.
Oh man!
Survived. This was down in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
So they jumped off the Skyway Bridge, survived, and then shot themselves. And their name was Michael, and I got named after them.
Wow.
So it was going to be Adam Michael. So now it's Michael Adam.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. That is deep. So tell the folks a little bit about yourself, how you got into the Mucusless Diet, and kind of your background, some of the things that you do.
Okay, well, when I was young, real young, I had a lot of behavioral issues. I used to jump around. I used to, slap the other kids. And in elementary school, I couldn't keep my hands to myself, and I was eating a lot of sugar and cereals and things that are cheap and just on a tight budget with a single mother raising my sister and I, affected behavior for sure. So I mention that because now I don't keep my hands to myself, but also I don't fidget as much. I was diagnosed. They said I had ADD, and I think I just didn't like being in school because my brain and my mind are always wandering off and whatnot. But
right.
Yeah, I just mentioned all that stuff because those things, those behavioral characteristics, they don't have to be, like, once you're labeled with that, it doesn't have to be you. Nobody ever looks at the diet. Nobody ever looks at the food. And I recently, let me see here, not too recent, but about 2010, my father had some issues with his health, and he had come into a lot of money, and then he had someone that was like a girlfriend that was around and enjoyed the lifestyle and helped him spend all his money, and then she left him, and he felt like a dummy because my sister and I were trying to tell him, hey, this chick's using you.
Mm-hmm.
He was single for years, and then all of a sudden he has this money, and here comes a 25. She was 25 years younger than him. She just comes around, she's not too bad looking. My dad falls for it, but the reason I bring it up is because when she was gone and my dad's money was all dried up, we're talking like a couple $100,000 and having fun and buying her stuff or whatever. He got on antidepressants, and the antidepressants 2 weeks later caused him to kill himself. So it's actually not that hard to talk about because he didn't do it to me. Did it to himself. It was his choices, but it kind of is a little rough, when I was in the other room, by the way, so I was living with him at the time, trying to keep his mental health well. I didn't know about the mucusless diet at the time, so I had no idea how to prepare food. I didn't know how close the connection is with food and with mental state of the mind and the body and things like that. So I was doing the best I could. He had certain physical issues where he wasn't able to chew food at the time. He had some saliva glands removed, or he had one of the two saliva glands removed because he had like a growth or something. So of course they went right after that and sold him on that, got him real scared about it. And after he had that removed, he wasn't able to sleep at night because his mouth was always dry. And so he would wake up and he would drink water, and then he'd have to wake up again later on to use the bathroom, to urinate, and then he'd have to drink more water, and he just was not happy. But I brought all this up because the pharmaceutical company or just food itself, who's governing the food? Why? What are they putting in it? Why? That all led me passionately, by the way, because I lost my father to some of this stuff, and I don't think he would have, with a sound mind, ever done that to himself. So that was all I needed to look for answers. So my path started with food, and then who's controlling the food, and then who really is the people that say that they are in control. So my path somehow led me into the mucusless diet. I ended up going to culinary school. I got into gardening after my father had passed away or committed suicide because I needed to get my mind off all of that. So gardening, my relationship with plants and growing those fruits and vegetables and things down in Florida at the time saved my life. Like I wasn't thinking about killing myself, but I'll tell you what, like, if you haven't had your own little garden, or if you don't go out into the woods and connect with nature, you're missing out on something. So the culinary school was pretty fun, but now I call it culinary arts because I was just learning how to make stuff pretty, and that was it. Like carve a watermelon or something instead of talking about what it really does when you eat it.
Right.
Eat it. So there was all that. And I learned about the Gerson therapy when I was in the culinary arts school. There was a lot of alternative information going on, but not in the curriculum. It was all amongst the students, like, hey, have you ever heard of the Gerson therapy? I was like, no. And with me, I don't I guess I jump into stuff like full force a lot. And but if it makes sense to me, then I'll try it out. So, now I don't do the Gerson therapy because I have other information, but at the time it was like that was it. That was where, at least, where I should be heading my energy or efforts towards. So a little bit after that, I was going to this acupuncturist with my wife, and because we've been having trouble like having children, so we were going to an acupuncturist trying to do the naturopathic thing, and the lady there was really nice. But one day I mentioned to her, I was like, hey, one of my testicles is like 3 times the size it's supposed to be. What do you think's going on there? Don't hit me with needles there or nothing, but
right.
So I'm talking to her about that, and she said, well, you have mucus in your body, you have blockages. And I was like, all right, well, how do I get rid of the mucus? And she didn't have a list of foods. She wasn't able to tell me, don't eat this, eat this. She just said, you've got mucus in the body. And she might have, said like certain stuff causes mucus, but she had no idea about the Arnold Ehret, the Mucusless Diet Healing System.
Right.
By Arnold Ehret. And I typed that in. I was like, mucus, like, where do I start? So I'm sitting in front of my computer. I type in mucus or mucus-free foods or whatever, and I found Professor Spira's video on the top 10 mucus formers, where you had like a fake audience laughing and clapping and everything. And
yeah.
I just thought that was great. I was new to the information, but my kind of sometimes what am I trying to say? Sometimes my sense of humor is a little weird to other people, but when I saw your little videos, I was just laughing like it was perfect. So it caught my attention, and the information was good too. So I got into the Mucusless Diet, and man, I hit it hard. I was like 5 months or 4 months, like almost completely mucus free, until I started having like heart palpitations and stuff. And I was like doing the whole raw thing. Like I did understand the book, but I was like, all right, well, if this is better than this, I'm just going to go all for it kind of thing. And then I don't know how many people do this. I think most people would do this because they say these foods create mucus. These foods over here don't create mucus. I'm done. Put the book down. I'm good. But myself at the time, and a lot of people don't focus on transition. And I've heard stories of Mucusless Diet practitioners that after 4 years, they might try to eat meat again for some reason. They're like, you know what? I'm really craving it. And instead of shaming themselves, they try it. And then their physiology tells them where they're at real quick and says, you can't handle this, that it is making you sick. So then they bounce back and they walk away from it, and they hit the system. They do more enemas or whatnot, and focus more on transition. Don't beat themselves up about it. It's been over 3 years for me since I've had any meat. And
yeah, nice.
So I'm proud about that. Yeah, and a few months ago I had like a dairy relapse that I wasn't even expecting. But what actually happened is I was doing a vegetable juice fast, and I wasn't doing for some reason during my 9-day fast I wasn't doing any enemas. And I know the importance of enemas. I know that when you stir up the dirt, or if you're in a room dusting, you stir up all the dust, you need that dust out. You're going to breathe it in. It's not going anywhere. You got to open up the windows, get a fan going or whatever, and get that stuff out of there as fast as you can, so you're not reabsorbing it and feeling even worse. So what happened to me after the 9-day juice fast? I started in like October. I just like dove into some bad stuff, pizza and cheese and all that stuff, and you and Brother Air were kind of laughing when you both called me, and it's so funny. Everyone that's listening can relate to this if you're a practitioner or just into like higher vibrations or just you'll know what I'm talking about. But so my vibes were a little low. I was a little off track, and literally 2 days after I started doing enemas again and picking myself off the ground, Brother Air and Professor Spira called me. They're like, "Hey, how's it going?" Almost knowing that I was going to say I fell off the wagon a little bit.
Right.
So so that's what happened. And before I met you, Professor Spira and Brother Air, I put you guys up on a pedestal, almost like you're perfect, and with the whole practice and all that stuff. And then when I actually met both of you, you guys are so humble. Like, you're not about the money. You're about helping people, because when you help people that live around you, it's actually going to help you, because you're helping to change the world and to create something better. I don't think too many people are happy with the way the world is, whether they're into this diet or not. Things are really cuckoo right now. So, let me see here. Just trying to think of, that's kind of like my background that led into the mucusless diet. I can also, going back to like the oversized testicle thing, it didn't even take 6 months, and the testicle went right back down to its normal size. And I find myself as doing more mucus lean stuff. I for a while I was doing mucus-free, and then I would bounce back with some mucus lean for a little period, and then mucus-free again. And then I do construction for a living. So there were certain times where I'd have to do some pretty physically demanding work, and I was questioning, if I could keep the job. And then instead of quitting the job and cutting off the finance, I looked back to the book and also to what my body was telling me, and I was doing more mucus lean stuff, but stuff that still eliminated okay, like a lot of hummus. Like I was doing giant salads with hummus in it and stuff, and I actually the past few weeks I've been using hummus instead of dairy and grain, because the pizza is not really easy to get off of. You eat one pizza and it's like got claws in it. It starts gripping onto you. It's pretty crazy.
Right.
So, but I didn't go back to meat, and that's the thing that I want to talk about, is because I was doing this system, or maybe not perfectly, because I fell off it a little bit, but I didn't go all the way back to eating meat. So I was really happy about that. And another comment I want to make is if you all out there if you can stay away from vinegar, please do it, because vinegar is associated with condiments, and a lot of condiments are associated with meats and ketchup and hamburgers, all that stuff, So I've made my own mustards pretty recently, and if I wanted a pickle, like yesterday, I actually had vinegar again. I went to a cookout, and I was like, you know what? I brought watermelon, and I brought some vegetables, tomatoes, like romaine lettuce, and I made a giant salad. And the funny thing is, I made this big salad, and there was like 7 people there, something like that. And I think 2 people got into the salad a little bit. Just a little bit of salad, though.
Right. And we are back with part 2 of episode 6 of the Mucus-free Life podcast. And I want to apologize for those of you that were tuned in yesterday, were getting all sucked in and was excited about us getting to talking about some real liberation. And we broke the internet. So that's our fault. This information we have is just so powerful. We just broke the internet. So I like to apologize to the internet, YouTube. They can't. We should understand they're not going to be able to handle everything that we have to say and to share. But we're going to keep going. We're going to keep trying. And if it happens again, we will try again. And so they're not going to, just because they can't handle it, they're not going to stop us. And so I hope all of you are doing well on this Saturday afternoon. And again, we have a very special guest that excited to get into some heavy conversation today. So this is Michael Adam Fathauer. How are you doing, my friend? Let's see. Oh, you're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
I said I was doing pretty good. Now I'm better.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I got a weird hat on. It's just some kind of weird stretchy bandana thing.
Yeah. Hey, man,
I've never had long hair, so when I drive, it's like almost like waterboarding. When my hair's hitting my face, I can't think.
Yeah.
So I just throw this thing on
Throw it
sometimes.
on. Yeah. Hey. Expression. Freedom of expression and utilitarian expression. Sometimes it's useful.
More than one purpose.
So let's pick up where we left off from yesterday. I believe you had just got done talking about some of your recent transitional challenges. You gave a little overview of your backstory and how you got into the Mucusless Diet and interested in health in the first place. And then you got into some recent troubles and challenges. You said you were kind of going through part of the transition. Now we all go through, and I try to get people ready for the relapse periods. You know, people always want to think that
it won't happen to me.
Yeah. You might have even said that. I don't remember. It seemed like last year at the Air Day, you said something about, well, I'm not going back to this. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, and so that's the thing, man. This lifestyle, it's just a humbling lifestyle, but you have to really deal with it and really actually practice it and see if it is what it claims to be. When you go down these other paths and get into some of these more extremist paths, it's not this path, you know. And so if that doesn't work for you in the long term, you can't don't blame all of the plant-based healing modalities and things just because this one thing didn't really pan out. If there was no transition, I mean, transition. That's just, to me, that's the. It just makes so much sense. That's the foundation. That should be the foundation of anything that we're doing.
Even outside of this diet.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Anything we do, we're growing up, and all of a sudden you're an adult. Not overnight.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You're remodeling a house. It's not done the next day.
Exactly.
So.
Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about some of your. You know, however you wanted to get started talking about this idea of freedom. We'll use that word for now. When we how do you define freedom? Freedom.
Is it okay if I tack on like 5 minutes from where we got cut off yesterday?
Yeah. Go ahead and do that.
Okay. I was talking about going to a Independence Day or 4th of July picnic yesterday, or no, not yesterday now, but on the 4th of July. And I brought a watermelon, and I brought romaine hearts and onions and some tomatoes, and I brought everything that I needed to make this giant salad because that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And would I have gone to a cookout without being married and having my wife, you know, insisting that I go? No, I wouldn't have gone. But you know, we're warriors to some extent, and we can't get away from some of the things around us. So I went. Great people, no pressure about anything, no weird questions. They did their thing, I did mine. We had good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I was mentioning yesterday how I had some pickles. And that was my thing yesterday. It's like, oh, everybody else has got all this stuff going on. How can I cheat today?
Right.
So I had some pickles, and the vinegar was making me to where I was craving meat. And my wife makes these egg rolls that she's been making. I've been with her 15 years, and memory and smell is a big deal. You know, we can smell something and go right back to like being 5 years old with mom or whatever it is.
Yes.
So I smelled those plenty, and it wasn't a big deal. And then later on, after the vinegar from the pickles, they became they smelled a little better. No way was I going to give in or anything. But so I was just experiencing that. I thought it was interesting. And the other thing that I know we got cut off yesterday, but I was talking about the importance of enemas, because later on when I did an enema, the craving was gone. And when I talked about my relapse with pizza in October and eating cheese and stuff and not doing enemas during a vegetable juice fast, the enemas are like the guide in the dark. You know, they lead the way. If you're not sure where you're headed, the enemas will tell you where to go. They'll point in the right direction.
Right.
And without the enemas, it's like being stuck in the dark. You might have your hand up for someone to help you or something to help you, and without putting that work in to nudge your physiology or kind of help your body along and help get rid of the waste that's in there, it's actually really hard to do this system and to actually gain traction, because part of the system is the enemas. You take that away and you're not experiencing the entire system as efficient and correct as it can function.
Right.
You know, you won't get the same results and things like that. So there's even been times where I would be in an argument with my wife and I don't even know why I'm arguing. And there was one time when that happened, when I went and did an enema, and I came back and I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I was,
right.
I'm sorry I was doing that. I feel so much better now. And I even wrote it down in my little journal. I was like, enemas, stop arguments with wife,
Right.
Something to that effect. And there was even one time that I was working on the house that's in the background here, that it's not finished. If I put the camera up a little bit, you can see on the first floor, there's no drywall yet. So transition.
Right.
But I was working on the house and there was nobody around, nobody picking on me, nobody calling me names, nothing. I was just getting so frustrated with the task at hand. And I took the circular saw by the extension cord and I swung it around almost like a weapon, and I just smashed it through my floor, and it actually went down to the first floor.
Yeah.
And right after that happened, I was like real sad. I'm like, what the heck just happened? And within 2 days of that happening, I had some of the most mucoid plaque that has passed yet. And it was also followed by some black tar kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It almost smelled like petroleum. If you're adding oil to your engine, there's like this oil, obviously an oil smell. It's oil, but I think that some of that smell could be due to, they're called petroleum distillates. And there's many byproducts after they make gasoline. One example is diesel fuel is a byproduct of gasoline, so they use that to fuel different types of engines. But then there's also other byproducts like dish soap, and different detergents are made from oils.
Right.
But I think the waxes and some of the things they spray on the foods are also distillates and byproducts from the oil industry. So I think that's why. But after I had that stuff come through, I was really happy and feeling good again. So
right.
So this is some of the images of mucoid plaque.
Yeah. I like to do that. And there's some new stuff. That's always nice when there's some. This is new. Haven't seen these before. And BioCleanse. So, but of course they're probably all associated with cleanses. People selling different things.
The mycelium husk or whatever it's called.
Yeah. I still get a kick out of people out there that say that this doesn't exist. They're like, oh, there's no such thing as mucoid plaque. Well, I mean, you can call it something else. You can call it slimy ropies or something. I mean, you can just make a name up.
That the picture with the penny. Is there a penny in one of the images?
Where is
Next to the guy with his mouth open. To the left.
Of that, yeah.
Okay, I had something similar to that come out. A little bit more than that, and a little bit lighter in color.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that tried the Mucusless Diet but wasn't doing it correctly, and he's eating meat again. He was never really doing enemas, and he said every once in a while that if he eats, I don't know if it was pizza or rice or whatever, that he has mucus that comes out. And I was like, wow, you're lucky. If it's happening that fast and coming out or whatever, then that's good for you. But when I was on the phone with him, and I was like, how you said that mucus comes out? You should see what came out today. And I sent him a picture, and I actually used like a long nail, like a 3-inch nail. They have right there, they have like a stick.
Yeah.
And I had like a 3-inch nail, and I kind of like scooped it out, and it was on the edge of the nail hanging down a few inches, and I sent him a picture of that, while we were on the phone, and he just started throwing up. And I was like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Oh man, what is that?" He's actually throwing up.
Yeah.
But when I sent it to him, I thought that's what he was talking about. He's like, "Man, that's not what I'm talking about." So.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I think. Oh yeah, I had a.
If we can get plaque on our teeth, why couldn't we get it on the rest of the body?
Right.
Because people will brush their teeth and talk about plaque all the time on their teeth, but
yeah,
it's even on their tongue. They'll scrape it off their tongue, but why does it stop there? It doesn't stop there.
Right. Yeah. This is
That looks like some of the Keegan images from that video.
It is. Yeah, this is from that video. Wow, this is impressive. There's some new. It's been a while, I guess, since I've done one of these searches, but there's definitely a lot more of these than there used to be, because it really used to be, there was a few that I put up, like this is a scan of mine. So there's a lot of people would take scans that I made of a book, of the Bernard Jensen book. Yeah, a scan of a scan, and then I had a couple of my own eliminations that I put out there that used to make its way around the internet. But I wish I would have documented more earlier on, 'cause I was just, you just getting into the diet, and this was before a lot of the stuff that's happening these days with the way that people think. And another thing I say about when we eliminate the black tar stuff, see, we're not doing charcoal or the mud drinking, this bentonite clay kind of stuff, and generally speaking, that's not something that we will do or advocate in the beginning. And so we might be eating fruit that's not dark at all. So some people say, well, you're drinking grapefruit mixed with the bentonite clay. Well, we don't practice that. That's not part of our I know that there's a couple protocols that do that, and then they get the black stuff out, and then the people say, well, hey, of course it's going to be black. Yeah, but we might be drinking apple juice or something for several days, or lemon water, and get black stuff out. And so in the earlier days, I always make that claim, because it does change. It does get into different level.
Yeah, I haven't joined that club yet. That big long thing. I'm not there yet.
And so that's but that's really interesting that you were able to make that connection, that all of a sudden you don't know why you're so agitated, and you're kind of you're snapping on people, as we might say, and you do an enema, and this death stench and material come out, and it's like an exorcism. You have eliminated and purged this this thing that is making you insane, that's causing so much malevolence. And you'd be sitting there, that I should get that, put that on my soundboard, where it'd be like, this house is clear.
Yeah, this house is clear. Do you remember the Ninja Turtle cartoon back in the day?
Yeah.
You remember? I think the character was called Brain or whatever. It was this.
Yep. Krang. That was Krang.
What was it?
Krang. Yeah. The brains in the stomach. Yeah. It was like. Yeah.
And I just picture that being like mucoid plaque, like controlling us. I just got that little image where it's just sitting there telling us how to feel.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
What was that? Oh, I forgot what I was going to mention earlier. I wanted to mention how, in the past, you've said that you can point out the biggest, toughest, bad dude in the room, and then show him this diet, and he can't do it. Most of the time, he's not going to be doing it.
Yeah. No, I've had people terrified of me. Little old me. I don't want to. I'm not here to want to hurt anybody. But I've had people run away from me that are supposed to be, big bad guys, that whole thing, and gang members or whatever, and I start talking about the diet, and they just get scared. They don't want none of it. And so it's interesting. That one story, the funniest one to me that I always remember was somebody was in the neighborhood trying to sell, or no, they weren't trying to sell. They were trying to give away free meat. They had this high-end, expensive meat in the back of this truck, and they were going door to door. Kind of, I guess they just needed to get rid of it, and so they thought they would be nice people. And he's like, man, we got these steaks in here, whatever. You know, they were like super, like those expensive ones. They're like $30 a steak or something. And I'm like, oh man, well I don't eat, you know, no thank you. I was just real polite. I didn't even say I don't eat nothing. I just said, oh no thank you, I'm good. And he's like, well no man, I'm serious. There's nothing wrong with them. It's fresh meat. You know, it's these steaks. And I'm like, well I don't eat meat. You know, and then he started getting real confused, and he was just looking at me. He was like,
living off of it. Yeah.
And he's just like, well, how do you get your protein? And then I was like, here we go. And so I was like, well, I don't believe in the protein theory. And then he's just like, what? You know, like he just, you know, the fact that it's a theory. He's just like, yeah, but what about, you know, he asked some other question. And so I started getting into, I was like, well, you know, I don't believe with Francois Magendie and Mulder. You know, I don't agree. And I started talking about, like, you know, well, back in the 1800s, there was these experiments with dead dogs. This dude just out of nowhere, he literally took his hand and slapped his forehead with his eyes went bug-eyed, like in the middle, and he slapped his head and he turned red and he just looked at me in fear, and he's like, oh, okay, thank you. And he literally turned and ran away. So, and it's heavy, man. I mean, that's when I started. Well, I knew it before them, but in the early days when I started sharing this information, I saw how powerful it was, you know, because it's, you know, when you walking around with certain levels of truth and you are doing it, you know, you're practicing it, it can be scary to those that want to stay in the sandbox, because this is basically a coming of age type of thing in terms of one's lifestyle, you know, coming of age, maturing. And I'm not talking about age, because there's a lot of people that's 12 and 13 years old that's way more mature than folks in their 50s and 60s. So I'm not talking about literal age, but I'm talking about, I guess, spiritual age, if for lack of a better concept. Where people say, oh, so-and-so's got an old soul, or they're, you know, a lot of wisdom. But it's a way to mature in terms of your life. It's like really growing up. Because now, because as you go down this path, things that you used to enjoy aren't going to be fun anymore. Now there's new things. There's a whole bunch of new things that are way more fun, that are way more healthy for you. But a lot of people, if you're attached, see, one thing I like to, one of the things I really enjoy about some of the philosophical or theological traditions is the concept of non-attachment. Non-attachment to people, non-attachment to things, non-attachment to activities, non-attachment. And because what's it take? That attachment kind of represents this stickiness, this mucusy, sticky kind of situation anyway. And the more that you're attached to things, is going to create obstruction when you need to move on. And so there's nothing wrong with enjoying things and doing, you know, loving things or loving people and all, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I have a problem with the attachment, because I see how it holds you back and can hold you back when you need to take it to the next level, when you need to take it to the next step, and you're attached to something. And if that's the reason why you're not taking it to the next step, you're going to have some problems. There's going to be some karmic repercussions, because, you know, the natural system doesn't care about, you know, all the mental stuff that you're going through, and it just wants you to be in line with it, you know, in line with nature. And so it's powerful. But that's why also, if you look at stuff we did years and years ago, when I wasn't necessarily trying to transition people into the information. You know, I've changed over the years to where I was more kind of a shock and awe kind of approach, where I wasn't really trying to transition people into this information. I wanted people to be exposed to it and then put it on them if they're going to get into it or not, and say, well, here, I woke you up, here's some water on your face, wake up, here's this information, bye. I mean, that was kind of my attitude back then. It was just like, here you go, it's up to you at this point. Now,
almost like a door hanger. You knock on the door, someone comes out, what's this?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I was
gone.
kind of like that. Yeah, I'm already gone, because I didn't want the drama, because I already knew what it was causing a lot of drama. And so I'm just like, yep, knock, knock, knock. Exactly, yeah. Hang on the door, and I'm already gone by the time they open the door. But I started to invest time and energy into, I did 2 years where I was teaching as a professor of music, and that really gave me a lot of perspective and education in the process of teaching, building a curriculum, understanding the pedagogical approaches and things like that. And I started to notice that there's a connection between pedagogy and advertising and sales. I mean, and that I won't get way off into that, but essentially when you're sharing something, you're selling this idea or this practice or whatever it is, and you got to do it in a way that people are going to grab onto it. In fact, because I never set things up just to have people like, okay, well, buy the books and that's it. It's like, no, I would rather people get into a process to where they can actually understand this information and practice the diet, and therefore educational tools are needed. So that's what I've tried to do over the years. You've
done such a good job with that. Not everybody can pick up the old original Mucusless Diet Healing System book and hear the message through the old style of writing. And not only that, people didn't have as many distractions back then. Even if they were full of mucus, they didn't have all the electronics and that type of stimulant.
Right.
They had time to themselves to think, and he's clearly unobstructed, or has a lot of obstruction that has been removed, the way he speaks and the way he visualizes things. One of the things that I relate to in the musician kind of sense is that if you have cymbals or guitar strings, for example, those will get tarnish on it, they'll get oils on it, they'll get oxidation, all kinds of things, and so that brand new cymbal doesn't sound the same when it has obstruction on that.
Right.
It doesn't have that bright, it might not have a bright crash, it might have like a muffled kind of sound to it instead of the bright crash. Guitar strings don't sound the same when they're rusted and corroded. So if you all can picture your body with the obstruction out, and when your body doesn't have things attached to it, slowing down the vibration of the tissues and things, we don't have the same message with Yahweh or God, or we're not receiving the same information. I know that Brother Air said that when you get, what did he say? When you what did he say? When you empty your vessel, you've got more room for.
Well, you in order to receive all that the universe is trying to provide for you, you got to be empty. You know, and so to be empty, then you can be filled with the wisdom and the knowledge and the essence of the universe or nature or whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, and there's certain temples and things that people had to fast for 40 days roughly, or 40 days, 40 nights, so that, for one, I guess it showed their willpower over the flesh.
Right.
Second thing is that they actually would be able to better receive whatever information was going to be shared with them in those temples or whatever That's
Well,
kind of how I see it.
Yeah, yeah. Arnold Aird had pointed that out in one of the articles, where he was talking about Pythagoras. Pythagoras had to do the 40-day fast, monitor fast, before he would be admitted into the Egyptian mystery system, or the Egyptian mystery school. And he got into that school, and he comes out and he puts out all the books and the information. And of course, in Western society, he gets the credit for all of this. The ones that were let in the door, they either were let in the door or stole the stuff outright. They got the credit within the context of the historical record of Western history, and which is I can talk about that all day. That's a whole other kind of topic, but maybe it's not. That could be the segue into talking about what we wanted to talk about today as well, which is this idea of freedom, sovereignty. What does it mean to be free? And to explore the concept of freedom, not just, we talk about physiological liberation on this channel in terms of understanding as we get our bodies in line. The more that we can get in line, the more that we pay reparations for that which we have done and our ancestors have done in the past, physiologically speaking, that we can move ourselves, our families, our nations, and our world into balance again. As long as we're unbalanced with nature, the chaos is going to ensue. And it's just a matter, do we want to get rid of the chaos? Because a lot of the people that are ensnared in the pus world, they love the chaos. The chaos.
Yeah, they don't want to get rid of it.
They don't want to get rid of it. They love turning on the news and seeing, okay, who got raped today? Who got killed today? What war is happening? What drone strike is going down today? They love that. And so part of, again, the transition is as you start to transition physiologically, your values are going to change. What entertains you, what you want to do, and what you want to see, and what kind of world you want changes. So we can't have this type of conversation with someone who still wants the chaos. There's someone that is of, by, and for the chaos. That this is too high level of a conversation for them, but for the rest of you that are fed up with the insanity that's going on out here in the streets and outside and in the woods that are getting chopped down, and in the slaughterhouses, in all over the place. If you're tired of that, then you have that spirit that demands freedom, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I guess where to start, just how do you define freedom? If I was just say, well, what for sovereignty or whichever words, you can kind of educate me on the best choice of words for what this thing is we're talking about.
The first thing that comes to mind is freedom of association with others, freedom to associate with others, whether it's through business, private affairs, whatever. Everybody has the freedom of association. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was created in 1948 by, let me see here, it's Elizabeth.
And so that's a heavy one right there. Just freedom of association, and I know you're gonna probably get into that and kind of look at those definitions.
Okay, it wasn't Elizabeth, it was Eleanor Roosevelt.
Okay.
So if you read or look up the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's pretty powerful because people have human rights before they have civil rights. And civil rights would be something that would come afterwards if someone was a part of that. And the civil rights can't impede on the human rights. Even if you're doing business with somebody, if you have a private agreement with somebody, nobody can actually interfere with your freedom of association unless it creates an injury, unless you start tiptoeing on other people. So you can't force association. Nobody can be forced to an association if they don't want to be a part of it. So we actually have in place today, we have businesses that are actually posing as national governments, and they are doing something called forced association. But their marketing and propaganda is so good that if people aren't looking into it and just looking at the surface, they're going to feel like they're a part of something. But like if you're approached by a cop on the street or something, there's like a natural fear. I've always felt that, and it's because there's something that's not set up correctly. And so I want to show you guys this link real quick.
Yeah.
So I'll do a screen share, and I've got multiple screen shares. So everything that I'll talk about today, I have links, and I'm not just fluffing you up here.
Yeah. This is gonna be this is one of these episodes. Take out a pencil, paper, or get ready to do some typing, take some notes. You're gonna want to take some notes on this stuff and really follow the logic, follow the definitions, understanding the words, the concepts, and once this is posted later on, I'll put some of the links down below so that you can have easy access. But you can also kind of write them down here and find them yourself as well.
Right. Also, they could pause the video and they can see the actual, like the images I have. Most of them have an actual screenshot of the URL above the image from where it was taken. So one of the first things is when people think that they're a sovereign citizen, or they hear that term all the time, that's not a good term. You don't want to have anything to do with that, because sovereign is supposed to mean authority. Like the kings back in the day, they would call themselves sovereign, and then the citizen can mean subject to a sovereign. So a sovereign citizen is an oxymoron, and it's just retarded, because people are saying I'm free, but I'm a subject, and it's just the stupidest thing.
Right.
So it's also a way for the companies posing as government to create certain terms, and they can attach that term to your legal person and kill you publicly, and everybody around you will be cheering for it because they think that you're a threat to the society. But you're actually, if you're doing it right and you got labeled that, it's because you're doing something right. When you get the attention and you get smeared like that, if you're not doing it, you just have to be careful. You don't want to call yourself a sovereign by any means, because nobody by themselves can be sovereign. You actually have to form a social compact with others, and that social compact is sovereign. It's a sovereign body politic. And so we all have, like I said, I was talking about the day I got real frustrated, and I took the circular saw and I smashed it into the ground. What if somebody was around me and I took it out on them because I couldn't control myself?
Right.
What am I going to say? Like, oh, you can't touch me, I'm a sovereign. Well, there's an injury here.
Right.
I've trespassed, I've damaged and affected other people's lives. So if I'm in a social compact with a number of people, and we all agree to the same thing, like not to force association with anyone else, not to steal anybody else, not to commit adultery, whatever it is, not to take someone's wife or take their property. If you're in social compact with people, you know who they are, because they've agreed to be bound by whatever settlement board. If you have a court system as part of, like if you have an actual national government that's founded on a social compact, you would also have a settlement board, because you're going to need to, there's going to be people that are going to do things that might not be the best thing, and to be held accountable. And the reason why they could be held accountable is because they already agreed to the conduct on how they would conduct themselves within society. And honestly, it's not hard to follow the Declaration of Human Rights. It's actually pretty easy.
Now, do you have that? As I brought that up, is that one that you have? I found the Article 20.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And are you going to show that, or should I show it?
No, I didn't have that one prepared, but if you want, you can.
Just to kind of give folks this introductory
right
kind of thing. Let me bring it up here. So transition. Okay. So this is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can get into the history of that yourself. But the Article 20 says everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Number 2, no one may be compelled to belong to an association.
So right there, a lot of people don't realize it, but the courts, the Bar Association, the U.S. or the United States, which is 2 different entities I just mentioned, because the words are different and so is the entity. Those are private companies, or you could call them private associations if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to force you into association with them. And the way they have things set up is they don't have full disclosure. They don't tell you that the birth certificate is actually traded on the stock market, making you a product. And you're not living your life or reclassifying or claiming anything other. So you're just walking around and you're actually a product.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in the courts, they're like vetting. They need to see if you're a quote unquote U.S. citizen or part of them.
Part of that association.
Yeah, part of that association. And believe me, it's people think that things are going down the tube. There's no way around it, and there absolutely is. You have to find out how to not be in their association and also express it correctly and legally so that you're left alone. And it doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. You have to govern yourself. If you don't possess the ability to govern within, you'll be governed without.
Right.
So freedom, another way to define freedom is full liability for your actions, full responsibility. You know, if you want full freedom, you have to be willing to accept all the liabilities that come with it.
Right.
It's not this kill somebody, get 10 years kind of thing. You kill someone, guess what? You're done. You know?
Right.
So it's not a slap on the hand. It's not limited liability through the company.
Right. And for those, and it's interesting to get your perspective, because I know because you don't deal with the current constitution of the whatever you would call it, but it's interesting that for people that do identify with that document, the freedom of association is also in there, but I forget exactly where.
Well, yeah, but that's a private company. We'll get into that in a little bit, but the 1789 Constitution is actually just the constitution of a private company. And so they're not talking to the people reading the Constitution. Like if I call AT&T and I say, "Hey, I got problems with my phone. I'm not getting good reception. I'm not getting all my phone calls or whatever." They're going to be, "Okay, well, what's your name?" Like, "Oh, my name is Michael Adam Fathauer." "Well, okay, well, what's your phone number?" Blah 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 blah. "Well, sir, we don't have you in our records. Sorry, we can't help you." So if you don't have a contract, and we don't have to focus just on contracts, but if you're not a signatory there, then you don't have any obligations to pay them, and you also don't have any rights to their services. So if you ended up calling the right company, and let's say, maybe I said it wrong, you're calling AT&T on accident, but you actually belong to Verizon. So you're like, "Oh, my bad," and they're like, "Yeah, we can't help you, sir, because you don't have any kind of contract or anything like that with us." So you call Verizon and they figure out that you're one of theirs, and boom, they actually have an obligation to restore service if you're having issues because you've paid them. So there's consideration. For a contract, you have offer, acceptance, performance, and consideration. or it's offer acceptance, consideration, performance. The last two might be flipped around or whatever, but if both parties, one party could provide the service, the other party could be providing the money for the service. So both of them have that equal exchange, and between them they set the terms of the relationship with the two parties. So the main question that I would like to ask everybody is, if that Constitution belongs to you, are you a signatory to it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you sign it?
Did you sign it? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Did you sign it or yeah. And this also to open things up, because then you can break all this down, kind of come at it from, a lot of people are gonna come from, including me, we come from our miseducation, as the miseducation of the Negro, as the great.
Have you ever heard
said.
of deactivating your Willie Lynch chip?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, people can look that up. That'll blow your mind.
Hold on. Okay. Why is this not okay? Okay. This is strange. Okay. All right. Okay. This is what I wanted to read. So this is because I'm learning too. This is how I study. Sometime I like to try to. I'm gonna do a video on how I take notes, just because I feel like I want people to know how to learn, and just something as simple as knowing the right way to take notes, the right way to research, knowing the right keywords to look up at the right time can take things a whole different level in terms of your own education. But well, I looked up here, so there's a whole section on the concept of freedom of association and the way that it's implemented internationally in different jurisdictions. But it says freedom of association is both an individual right and a collective right guaranteed by all modern and democratic legal systems, including the United States Bill of Rights, Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and international law, including Articles 20 and 23 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and Article 22 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work by the International Labor Organization also ensures these rights. So that's...
So the mucusfreelife.com, it could be structured, it's structured as an LLC or whatnot, but it also is somewhat functioning as a private membership association, which is a type of association between the people that are in it, and as long as nothing nefarious is happening, nobody can overstep those boundaries,
right,
because they're foreign to it.
Right.
They're foreign to the members, they're foreign to the policy amongst the members. So I want to just go over a list, because the main thing is chain of title. People don't know the name of the country.
Mm-hmm.
They think that the country is called United States, or the U.S., or United States of America.
Right.
But the actual name of the country is the United States of America, and I'll show you the links. It'll show you the actual name. But so basically, the chain of title is really important. So if someone calls me something other than what I go by, that's not the correct title. But so it starts with the scriptures. A lot of people think that the Bible is the law of the land, and it actually was at some point. But from the scriptures, we had the Law of Nations that was written in 1758 by Vattel. I think it's Emmerich de Vattel. He wrote that in 1758. And that actually sparked the people to go into... that sparked the Revolutionary War. So the Bible is actually the law of the land, and when it's read the right way, it's actually a nation-building book. It has all the necessary things in there for people to form a nation, whether it's courts, surveys, establishing the general post offices amongst the townships, how to set up the social compacts, all of that stuff. So Emmerich de Vattel took that from the scriptures, and he wrote the Law of Nations in 1758. So
now, when you say Bible, which Bible you talking about? There's a blue million Bibles. So which is there a particular translation, a particular one, a particular tradition? Like, so when you use that word, what do you mean?
just the scriptures, just known as the scriptures.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different new versions of things, but yeah, if you just go back to the scriptures, then you would see that. So after the Law of Nations was written and people realized what it took to form and create a country, they realized they didn't have one.
Mm.
So that sparked the Revolutionary War, and then shortly after, in 1774, we had the Articles of Association, which was here in the United States of America. So the Articles of Association is when people got together and started figuring out what they wanted to create together.
Mm.
And that was actually the first union. That was the first actual union by the people. It wasn't some kind of business or privately held company posing as a government. That it would be government down, and it would be the government telling the people what to do. Except the reality is that the people have their power when they assemble.
Mm.
So they don't have any one leader that dictates everything. What they use for creation of all the laws and things is when they get together and assemble a Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And the Congress or that assembly can only make the laws when everybody is there and voting.
Right.
So they have it structured to where it only goes that way. That way, when something's written into law, everybody has a chance to rebut it. Everybody has a chance to be a part of it, modify it, whatever, because it would actually affect them. So who's going to create something that's negative if they know it's actually going to also affect them?
Right,
the answer is
right.
They wouldn't do that.
Right.
So right now there's a lot of crazy things out there, a lot of crazy laws, and that's because there's a titled class, people that have titles of nobility that are hiding behind these associations and hiding behind the courts, and they write these laws that don't affect them.
Right.
If it did affect them, they would never write the laws.
Right.
So these laws don't have the people's acceptance. They don't have any kind of enactment clause. They don't even have oath and affirmations or acceptance. A letter of acceptance and acknowledgement for their office. They don't even have that.
Right.
It's because the offices aren't actually real. They're just part of a business. So
And one thing for the listeners, I would ask them, just while we're talking, ask yourself, how many private membership associations are you a member of, and how many associations are you being forced into illegally by power, if we power to the extent of being forced. I would say that when someone has a gun to your head or is threatening you by taking away your liberty and putting you into a cage, that's a problem, and that's the problem that we're in, a lot of us.
Yeah, I agree. So after 1774, the Articles of Association created the first union, and then I just had it written down so I didn't mess it up.
Mm.
So, and then from there, we have the Declaration of Independence from 1776,
Mm-hmm.
which actually has nothing to do with the 1789 Constitution.
Mm.
They actually are called claim jumpers. The 1789 Constitution, which created the United States, it's the styling's different and everything. When they had the Constitutional Grand Convention in 1789, they were supposed to amend the Articles of Confederation, and they had all this hype saying that it wasn't a centralized government, it was weak, it wasn't perfected, it was vulnerable, all this stuff. But those were people like Freemasons or bankers trying to get in there and get rid of it, because if all the people had their power in a Congress, you can't hijack a Congress, because that's when people are assembled. But if you created something like companies have CFOs or chief financial officers, companies have presidents that make a lot of decisions. What they say kind of goes. So the president of the United States, which is a company, has more. That office has more control. So they like that format. So they actually had to, over time, convince people that their company was the original national government or the original union, and it's not. So they never amended the Articles of Confederation in 1789. Instead, they created a whole new entity called the United States of America with a lowercase t instead of an uppercase T. So if any of you out there had a company and you wanted to create even if like a lawn company, and it was Jeff's Lawn Care, and it was all capital letters just for the sake of the styling, and somewhere on the application one of the uppercase letters was a lowercase on accident, your application will get rejected and sent back to you, and they'll tell you that you can't apply for two entities on one form. And people in the legal world, they know this. Everything has to be to the letter or to the T. And I think that the to the T part is in circulation because things weren't to the T back then. And so yeah, the backing up again from 1789, I was just kind of talking about it because it was there, but 1781 was the Articles of Confederation, and it created a perfect union to perpetuate the states. So the states can come under a social compact, and a social compact's a big deal because the people across the street from you, you need to know who they are. Not personally, but you need to know at least that they're in agreement with a certain set of rules so that everybody can coexist in some kind of structure without stepping on toes.
So while we're on this, so as we kind of hit these big concepts, I want to kind of focus in on them. So give us your definition of a contract and the power of it. What is it? What is a contract?
The contracts have four bases, and it's offer, acceptance, performance, and consideration. So that's the thing. Like, if someone offers you a job and you don't actually officially accept and acknowledge the job, then there's no contract. So that'd be one thing. Yeah. That's actually the main. It's pretty simple. So you could say, hey, Mike, could you get me a glass of water? And I could say, yeah, I accept and acknowledge, and get up and get you a glass of water, and we establish. Right. You know. So.
But I'm hitting these things because I know later on there are things that we have been taught to not take seriously. So in maybe some more advanced schools, perhaps public schools, maybe had this, but we weren't taught about the power of association. We weren't taught about the power of contracts, the introduction to contract law. Those that learn about it tend to be, you're talking about the title holders or the people that the selected few that do learn about this stuff that then use that information to create their own little their own little protection, their own little world. But this is big, like big stuff that's just that we're all missing. That we're all missing the power, getting into it where it's just not about how many people can you assemble to march and put your fist in the air, and I'm a protester and I go do things that I believe in. I'm gonna show up, but I know there's a number of people that think, well, that's what it's all about. That you just the power to assemble these people. We're gonna march down there, and if we get arrested, we get arrested. That kind of attitude. That's what they want. Honestly, they being the ones that have the power to throw you into a cell. That's what they want because they can deal with that kind of thing. But see what we're talking about now. Now you get into a point where you're going to supersede all of that. You go right around it and just say, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to create my own associations and first understand what that is, understand what it means to have that power. Because see, people all day you'll hear about my freedom of speech, or you'll hear about this but they should be saying my freedom of association. You'll never hear that, but the freedom of association is probably more potent than freedom of speech, because within the context of an association, you can establish your own freedom of speech within the context.
And if someone in association with you, under social compact with you, is a signatory to your association, or in association with you, if someone takes one of the people from the association, then that's forced association, and so the group would actually protect the individual. It's almost like a herd mentality, where like one of the animals from the herd gets kind of picked off when they're off to the side or whatever. So this creates a legal construct to protect people. You have someone that's got your back if you're being attacked.
Right.
Also, if you read the Emmerich de Vattel Law of Nations from 1758, in that you'll find that a nation must have a social compact, and there must be signatories to it, and they must accept and acknowledge the social compact. If you don't have that, it doesn't exist. So the U.S. or the United States, they don't have a social compact. That's one of the reasons why it's not a nation. They have the Bill of Rights, but the Bill of Rights is not a social compact. It's kind of posing as one, so they could slide it in there. And there's no signatories to it. Nobody's signed it. Nobody's accepted it. So they actually aren't protected by it. But when they ask for protections from the Bill of Rights, or they say, when they're referring to the constitutions aren't bad. It's just which constitution are we talking about? And so when people are demanding their constitutional rights, they're admitting that they're a member, and that's part of that vetting process. So if you're demanding that right, well, you can't pick and choose what rights that you have. So they could say you have the right to be thrown in jail because your ass is crazy, and that's part of actually jail is one of the things. The U.S. citizens, if they act out of line, that's part of it. They get their behavior gets corrected sometimes when they didn't need the correction, or if it's severe penalty, that's just part of it.
Right.
So
let's okay, we're keep on moving down the road here.
So another thing is so like when you asked me the contract thing, it's offer, acceptance, consideration, performance. So someone offers you a job, right, to paint the house. They offer you the job, you accept and acknowledge the duties of the job. So you both have this acceptance. The agreement is beforehand, and then once you shake or sign, that's the acceptance. The performance from one side, whoever the party is that's bringing the services, that's the performance. And then the consideration is the other party that's paying. And it can kind of flip-flop and go both ways as well. So bartering, when people barter, that's you reach an agreement, and then you accept and acknowledge, and then I might trade an apple for you, and you'd be like, I got 2 lemons, and that's perfect. And, I think that's worth it. So it's a reciprocal thing. There's equal consideration, and no one's shortchanged.
Right.
So let me see here. Yeah, so the original country, the original name of the country is the United States of America, and that was created in 1781 with the Articles of Confederation, which is not the Confederacy or the Confederate thing from 1871. That was completely different. And I want to do a screen share real quick.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is the company posing as a government, they've tried to change his story, and a lot of people will agree that the history is written by the victors, but they only kind of won for a little bit, and they did it through force. So the British really never left. They created this dummy corporation to look like the original nation, and to slowly campaign and trick people into giving up their nationality to an actual national government or to an actual country, and get them to join this corporate type of thing, to where you have limited rights, you don't have a social compact, and and eventually you get turned into a product. So let me do the first screen share here. I'm gonna mute out for a second.
Okay. And yeah, and while he's doing that, this brings to mind, there's a real good friend of mine that's going through some things where in some states in the United States, they're starting to force people to vaccinate their kids. And I guess earlier last month in June, it just passed the state laws. And so there's laws in place that they'll throw you in jail if you don't jump through the proper hoops and have your child either go to private school, public school, or homeschool them. They're going to take your kid and throw you in jail. I'm assuming that's what and I don't have the actual law in front of me, but I know that that's the type of repercussions that go on. Now they're saying, well, okay, you have to put your kids in to some kind of thing, but they also have to have this poison pumped into their body. And if they don't do it by a certain date, they can't get into school. If they can't get into school, we're taking your kids and you're going to jail.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole, I mean, it's ridiculous. There's people that legitimately cannot, like, let's say a family divorce, like a mother and a father, they're married and they divorce for some reason, and the father gets stuck with this mandatory child support that's unrealistic, creating a legal impossibility. Then he gets put in jail, loses his ability to travel to a job, loses the ability to even have a job, loses his license, all that stuff. And then they're still at the same time creating the illegal impossibility to pay and demanding that he pays at the same time. It's like someone holding your head underwater and saying, breathe.
Right. You can't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's disgusting, and that's why, you see us oftentimes. I think people don't always understand why we're so outraged by this society, because some people are in some kind of comfortable situation and they're not really understanding the reality of how oppressive this thing that we're a part of is, that we've been forced into. They don't get it. And when you are trying to, and as soon as you start, because it's one of those things, is the old when they came to take the communists, and I said nothing because I was a socialist. They came and took the Catholics. I said nothing because I'm Jewish. That old poem. That's that. See that.
If I could interject, I have something that's perfect for
you.
Yeah. All right. So right there, like if all right, you go to the Elks Lodge, right? The Elks Lodge has membership for Elks members, and you can go to the Moose Lodge and hang out, and you can become a Moose member. You can be a member of both of them, but don't go to the Elks Lodge and be like, well, over at the Moose Lodge, we have this on tap, and we smoke cigarettes if we want.
Yeah.
You go over to the, you can't go to either one and force them to accept, something that's outside of them, because if you're a non-member, then what are you doing here? You have no vote, you have no say. You're not in agreement. You haven't signed anything. In that example, you haven't accepted and acknowledged membership. Right. So, and you also pay for memberships in most of those places as well. So you have rights to enjoy the membership there, and to go there and play pool with your buddies, or shoot darts or whatever. And they have an obligation to provide, because you're paying into it. You're a member in good standing. So I just wanted to mention that the United States Constitution from 1789 is actually a private charter for a private company, and it's all copyrighted intellectual property that people can never use. They don't have permission to use it because they're not a part of it. So if a Roman soldier charged me with Roman law, it bounces right off me if I can show the right documentation, I've expressed my legal position or claimed a nationality outside of Roman law, because it wouldn't apply to me. It doesn't mean that I go over to Rome and kill someone and say, sorry, I'm not one of yours, I can kill people. It doesn't mean that. Because international law and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights does not allow that stuff. It doesn't fly. Right. There's a lot of people pushing statutory law, and they call them gurus, and I got caught up in the guru stuff, and fortunately for me, I didn't ever file any of the processes with the UCC or Uniform Commercial Code stuff, and that's all private law, and those are all private associations. And when we use those, Mike, some of the laws and some of the things, they're actually just internal policies. They're not public law. But if someone sees or read some of those policies or thought they were laws, it could make sense. But if it's out of context, then what are you doing? It doesn't apply. You have to know what that applies to. So
right.
There's going to be certain rules at Elks Lodge. Here we go. So
right. Let's see.
It only applies to Elks Lodge members.
Right.
So
you got your. I don't see your. I see your Skype thing, but not your stuff yet.
So right here,
okay.
U.S. Department Justice, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20530. If a Roman soldier walks up to me and charges me with Roman law, if I'm not a Roman, or if I'm not under Roman law, I can't be charged with it. I don't have to prove myself. The burden of proof would be on them, I would think. But that's just that was an example. I might have misrepresented it. So I want to do some other screen shares, and I'm not sure of the order on here. So let me, right here, this is Cornell, or www.law.cornell.edu, and this is talking about what the United States means. So the term state here means any of the several states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, or any territory or possession of the United States. And you see the United States here, that's a different styling from 1781. 1781 was the United States of America with a capital T.
Yeah.
It was all upper and lower case, and it was all spelled out, the United States of America. And when people say USA, that's actually a banking code. That's not even an entity. But the United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of United States. This is United States code here.
Yeah, that's right there. Because we say that the United States is a corporation, and people are just like, oh, that's just the they have some attitude about it. It's like, no, that's what it says.
Yep. And here's the biggest thing is that this presentation, it is what it is, but it's not to create fear mongering. People, I'll give you some links later on, but people can actually claim a resident declaration with the original government from 1781 because it was brought forward. A number of people trying to find their freedom realized that the 1789 Constitution was actually the creation of a private company, and they never fulfilled the reason for the Constitutional Grand Convention. They never amended the original government. They created a new one and slid it on in there. So when they realized that, they actually fulfilled the original purpose of the Constitutional Grand Convention. They amended the Articles of Confederation and brought it forward to the present day. And I think 2010 or 2013, maybe right around there, is when it was actually brought forward. So if you all are catching on to some of this, you can actually change the way you're living your life. You can change the way your status is. Don't go for any of the guru stuff. Do not associate yourself with sovereign citizenship. It doesn't exist. It's just it's a smear. It's a smear term so that they have an excuse to murder you, for real, to protect their interests. They'll do that.
Yeah.
So see what the next image is here. All right. So right here, this is an example. So one of the original colonies back in the day, one of them was Pennsylvania, or the original states was Pennsylvania. So why do we have Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? It's a completely different entity. It's not the original state. It's not one of the original states of the Union. So here's the address, 238 Main Capitol Building, Harrisburg, PA, 17120. The web address is www.pa.gov, and it says right here, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is a privately held company in Harrisburg, PA, and is a headquarters business. Categorized under executive offices, our records show it was established in 1787. Remember I told you the original government was 1781? The United States of America? So they start changing the chain of title and the timeline shortly after that, and you have them slipping this in right here. So it's incorporated in Pennsylvania, which is kind of funny. That's a different entity right there. That's another story. So current estimates show this company has an annual revenue of $500,000 to $1 million, and I think it's way more than that, and employs a staff of approximately 89,207. So there are creature states, or states that are posing as the original states of the Union, and then with some of the information and links that we'll provide after this video, you can do your research and find out the correct chain of title and correct history with the original states of the Union from 1781 forward. So right here's I live over by the city of Pittsburgh. I don't live in the city of Pittsburgh per se, because there's different surveys. There's two different surveys. There's original survey, and then there's this overlay of municipalities or districts. This is the city of Pittsburgh, 1808 Caldwell Street, Pittsburgh, PA. People, when they hear city of Pittsburgh, they picture the whole city, but it has an address, and it's a privately held company. So if you're not doing anything nefarious and you're not injuring anybody, and you have no ties to this company, and you get approached by them, they're trying to get free gifts from you. They're trying to get money from you. They're also they're walking around as a private company on most of all this public property, and they're stopping people on public property and saying that they can't be there, can't be at this park or whatever. But the original state of Pennsylvania has never ceded public property to this private charter. They're just a private company.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one here. So this right here is a map of the states. So that's one survey. So everybody thinks that they're here in these states with this survey. Everything is mapping and surveys. Because if you claim a resident declaration with the original government and you become a resident with the United States of America, you're moving your legal person into a different survey, and you're taking it out of a municipality, which is another survey from these private companies. Okay, so right here is where I'm at. I'm within the original metes and bounds of the original country, the United States of America. These are all the original states of the Union. I started off with a resident declaration, and that moved my person into the states of the Union. And like if someone goes to another country, they do they can declare residency, even though it's not technically another country. They still have the law of nations somewhat. They still have things that look and feel like government, so that people don't catch on to it. But if you go to a different, like if I go to China or Canada or whatever, I do a resident declaration over there, or I would ask for residency, and then I have, depending on what their laws are or internal policy, you have X amount of years to learn their customs and traditions, learn their culture, and then you decide if you really want to be there. Because once you become, once you become, like in their terms, it would be a citizen, but once you go for that full-blown acceptance to live there and be a part of that, it's not really easy to go back. I mean you can, but so everybody thinks that they're here, but they're actually here. This is an overlay survey done by the company, and they set up districts.
Is that counties?
Yeah, you can call them counties. Okay. They go by municipalities. So those are all city-states. They're not counties. They're not states. They're all cities.
In a world where people needlessly die of preventable illnesses, one man's vision offers hope to humankind. Order Professor Arnold Ehret's annotated, revised, and edited Mucusless Diet Healing System today.
All right, brothers and sisters, we are back. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we work through all of these technical issues. I told you, we broke the internet yesterday and that they was going to be trying to shut us down today, but we will not give up. This information needs to get out. So, all right, I can now share these images. They're all in a line. So, Michael, whenever you are ready, you can plug back into us here.
Can you see or hear me?
I can.
Okay, I'm ready. Plugged in.
All right. So let's see here. I can zoom in. We'll try this. We'll see if people can see us and the content at the same time. I have it set up like that, so we'll see. So I guess I will. You don't have these numbered, so I can.
No, they're not particularly in order.
Yeah,
but,
so they're in alphabetical order. So is there a particular one you want me to go through? Or you just want me to kind of start?
No, you can just kind of like peruse them or even share them later on. I mean, it's.
So did you already go over this? How the police department's a privately held company?
Yeah, they're all just franchises.
Right.
Of the origin or the 1789 private company.
Right. Yeah. Sheriff's office, privately held company. This is.
I'm sure everybody's seen at least one video where, and this isn't about bashing police at all. I got pulled over the other day and I was the nicest you could ever imagine. I was let go in like 30 seconds. I didn't say anything special. I treated him like a human being.
Yeah.
I put all my windows down. I had my lights on.
Yeah.
I had my hands on the door. I had my engine off. He asked me for my driver's license. I told him where it was. And I told him if you need to see it, it's in the center console. If you want, I can get it. So just let me know when you want me to reach for it, and I will. No, and
yeah.
And I even pulled. I waited like he got behind me because like I like swerved a little bit, but it was like 1:30 in the morning. Like everybody swerves here and there. Like you can hit the line. It doesn't mean you're wasted or drunk.
Right.
So he was just checking on me. He wanted to see if I was drinking, and I wasn't. So he saw that and he left me alone immediately. And I told him that I parked in. I pulled into a lit parking lot for both of us.
Yeah.
So that we had a nice lit area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they appreciate all that stuff. And they don't know how everything is structured every time. And not all of them are assholes. It's unfortunate that things are set up that way, but
right.
Yeah, and that's not what this is all about. This is about peace. This is about following the law for one, and holding others accountable that aren't following the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Doesn't mean it's an uprising and you got to go bash and burn stuff. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's about being responsible.
Right. Right. Let's see. Okay. All right. So the one, I don't know if you can see this on I got the code of canon law here. That's what is up. Can't hear you. You hit the mute, I think.
Yeah, I'm just reading with you.
Okay. Let's see. Canon, metropolitan.
Yeah, so this is showing you how the archdiocese answer to the Roman pontiff or the Pope.
Okay.
The Pope is more of a is not really a religious figure. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's actually controlling. If you're in that second survey I showed you guys with all the little city-states, you're under the Pope's control. Which might sound crazy to people.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. This is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. Privately held company in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
Is it own this business? You'd be like, well, yeah, I own it. If I hit that button, that means I own the business.
Right.
And American Bar. Okay, well, I know you got a lot to say about this American Bar.
Oh, no, I mean, I don't have too much to say. I mean, they create laws that they don't even apply to them because of how they structure it. They're a private company, and when you're in that court, it's a private court. What are you doing there?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Private
I'm not
membership.
telling anybody what to do. I'm just asking a question. What are you doing there? That's
Ye-
all I'm asking.
Yeah. Private.
None of this is legal advice or anything.
No.
Do your own
yeah.
research. These links are here for you to do that.
Yeah, this is all public information. We're just
Yes, it is.
saying, like, because for me, just to think of, because I've been a part of, the Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts of America, as a private membership association, but I didn't think about it like that. I mean, I didn't think that I'm in a private membership association that has its own constitution and its own laws, things that govern internally, that is outside of the jurisdiction of other entities. I just wasn't thinking like that. This is a new way to think about things that I know a lot of people don't think about things that deeply in terms of association, that what that actually means.
And the American Bar Association, when they make all these laws, they're actually subject to it, but nobody is holding their foot to the fire because they're creating it.
Because they're creating it, yeah. So there's
Like
literally above the law. Creates the law so they can be above it.
To the attorneys and lawyers, they are a privileged class.
Right.
Well, self-appointed privileged class.
Right.
Because governments are not private. Just so you guys all know that. Governments are not private. They're public.
Yeah.
All governments are public. You have assemblies. You show up to committees. You show up to assemblies. You voice your opinion. There's plenty of like C-SPAN videos or different videos with the U.S. company side where people stand up and like, this is is fraud. They get thrown right out of there.
Yeah. They get thrown right out. Yeah.
They don't have a say there. They're in the wrong assembly.
Yeah.
Not a party to it.
Right. Yep. They didn't sign. They're not signatories to. They don't have nothing to do with that.
This is an example of just Broward County in Florida, which, if you guys, I don't know if you saw it, I just shared like a week ago, the Broward County, their sheriff's office just lost all of their funding and accreditation because of how they've been handling shootings and things with people. So
yeah.
I don't want to say all cops are murderers, but there's a lot of murder going on disguised as justice on their end. So
that's a good way to put it. That's a that's a very legalese way to put that. Yeah, there's a lot of murder going on disguised as justice. That's good, man. That's a quote for you. We're gonna put that on a meme. That's good.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let's see. This is the legal action involving the county. This is more of the Broward County, I think. Any legal action by or against the county as a corporate body shall be the party named and shall appear and participate in the cause on behalf of the department officer or employee in such cause. Yeah. Exacting contracts. No provision of this charter shall be construed to interfere with any valid contract entered into by the county government. See, this is Article 1, creation of county and powers of government, corporate name and boundaries. And now, so what is the, what do you want to point out on this one?
Yeah, nothing really. It's just
Okay.
more proof. And when corporations pose as government, that's fascism.
Yeah, well, that's an important point. Yeah.
And here you go again,
Corporations.
Browning County Sheriff's Office, privately held company.
Yeah.
So the people the people's lives they're affecting and families they're tearing apart, it's a company doing this.
Yeah, a private company.
They just have a costume that looks good.
Right.
And just so you all know it, back in the day, I actually used to, when I was a U.S. citizen, before I did my oath and affirmation to become an American national, I actually worked for the creature state of Florida in the prison system. I was a corrections officer for almost 2 years. So I have a little bit of experience with the law enforcement stuff, and I'm not just like bashing them because I was working with real people. I had real relationships. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was a corrections officer. I thought these people, some of them were murderers, or maybe they messed around with kids or whatever. Some of them should have been in there, but a lot of them shouldn't have, and a lot of them were in there for some of these numerous statutes or internal policies that are almost impossible. When you leave your house, it's almost impossible, or it actually is impossible to not break one of their statutes. And right here is a little snippet. Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, the Providence Plantations, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Article 1. The title of this confederacy shall be, in quotes, the United
States of America with a capital T.
So what they do is they make this look like it's toilet paper and that it fell apart. They made it fall apart.
Right, because then
this right, what you're looking at is the original country, the people's voice. That's something that if you were a part of, you could, like, I interact with the original states of the Union. I've been a part of assemblies. I've helped to create laws, and it's all human right compliant. It doesn't harm anybody. It protects people. We're setting up things. It's, I don't have the wig with the curly hair and all that stuff, but I'm a part of history, and it feels really good.
Yeah.
This is probably making some people's head explode, honestly.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at the comment section in a minute. There's some discussion I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Because the thing, we have to understand, we're all coming, because as somebody that's interested in education, when I look at all this kind of stuff, I'm immediately thinking, how can we explain and break these things down and show evidence and in such a way that it can reach a large demographic of people, a lot, because while understanding there's people that are coming from different backgrounds and that have prejudices and things that they already, all of those things come into play. And so I try to create an environment where we can say, okay, well, let's just look at this information first and foremost. I understand people are coming from all kinds of different belief systems, political ideologies, socioeconomic situations, private membership association, their own associations, all of these different things, and it's like, it just, I'm saying this just because it's like a barrier. All of these hang-ups can prevent us from really religion. Thank you. Religion, all of these things are like barriers and obstructions that get in the way of us getting to the information that can actually free us.
Well, religion is actually different than faith. I believe in Yahweh. I believe in God. It's not a religion. It's a faith. I'm a follower of the way, the truth, whatever you want to say it. I don't fit into a certain denomination because there's extremes. There's all kinds of things for people to.
And then again, you're right. And we're back to associations again. Once you get back into. Right back to the association. Now, what is the thing that this is kind of, the quality of this is hard to read.
Yeah,
but what's that?
The United States of
uppercase.
America.
You can tell, up the United States of America with the uppercase.
So I haven't read the comments, but I can guarantee you there's going to be something in there that's not correct, or is and I'm not trying to be arrogant. Like, I've been through all the guru stuff. I've been researching and studying the international law and all that stuff. And the most important thing is chain of title. You've got something called tangible property rights. You have something called intangible property rights. So if I'm holding this little tomato here that prematurely fell off the plant earlier, I bumped into it. Right now I've got the tangible. It's in my hand. So this is my tangible property right. But if I drop it, someone else picks it up, I can't prove it's mine because I never created a chain of title. I never, if I have a private membership association with my property in there, we haven't even got into all that, so that would be another time. But
right.
the intangible property rights is your right to something that's documented.
Right. Right.
So the U.S. claims all these things, that the U.S. company, they claim all these things, and these are just examples of the chain of title. And I can get you links later on. We can share with people that are asking or emailing you or whatever. Like, if they will accept chain of title and study the timeline, and also keep in mind that the company from 1789 is going to tell you anything that is advantageous to them. They basically, what they want you to do is they want you to fight within that company to fix it. They want you to think it's that your country is gone or it's been taken over, and it was never a country when it was created. So from the get-go, it was not a country, and that's just part of their campaign stuff. And people get stuck in this loop. They never get out of it, ever, unless they find out about the law of nations and how to build a nation, social compacts, how contracts work, how assemblies work, how committees work, and things like that. They won't know what to look for, so they won't know what they don't have.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of freedom do you have when you are forced into an association which is against your human rights, and then with that association you are forced to have certain licenses in order to do certain things and you didn't agree to any of it, but it's the thing that you have found yourself in this situation, and so you comply to the extent that you want to function in the world or in your little sector.
So when you go to the DMV and you ask them for a license, you actually have, how people, a lot of people are like, they'll argue they have the right to travel, and they do, but they're going about it the wrong way. So when you go to them and you get the license, you're trading your intangible property rights for a benefit from them, like a benefit to use the roads and things like that. But they don't. I'm butchering it here. Let me see my notes real quick. So you have the intangible right to travel, but they trick you into getting a license with them and transferring your intangible property right. It's something you can't see. We have rights you can't see, you can't feel them. They're just there, and they hijack your right, and then they attach all these conditions, and then they get in between you and your point A and point B kind of thing. So they actually never give you any kind of consideration. Right. So it's not a valid contract.
Right. We'll start transitioning now because we're going to go over more stuff in the future, because when I have you back, I want to get a little bit deeper into your personal journey and how you study this information, and I know that we'll talk about the nation that you're a part of, because you're not, because I don't, I won't even, I'll let you explain all that, because that's like, because I don't want, I'll say something wrong, I'll say the sovereign, because I had made that mistake with the sovereign citizen piece. But you're right, it's like that, that's it is obvious once you look at it. That's just a big that term, it's kind of like, well, it's how we deal with, I avoid all those disease concepts that don't have nothing to do with, people are, I hear that all the time where people are asking about specific diseases, and I refuse to deal with that, because I'm not, that don't have nothing to do with, that's not our association. If you want to deal with the medical association, then that terminology works with them. We refuse that. See, and that's our power. See, we're refusing that in our association, as opposed to them trying to impose something on us, saying we're not allowed to use those words. It's not that we're not allowed. We don't want to use those words because they're debilitating, and the concepts that come with them are debilitating. And so that's a decision that we make within our own association. And so
can I give I'm going to send you a link on Facebook. I want you to share this with the listeners, because this I don't want anyone to look at me for, this information is not from me. I'm a part of it. I I didn't find it on my own. I'm sharing it because it changed my life. By no means is this my information. This, you know what I mean? So I'm not selling anything. I just want to help people become free. So.
Right.
So I'll send you a little thing. It's called the T-Row Show, and the T-Row Show is phenomenal, and it's a podcast. And the hosts on the T-Row Show are very talented, and you'll see when you listen to it. I'm not giving this any justice. When you listen to that show and you follow through the podcasts, it's so powerful. It's great. I listen to it every week. They usually, like clockwork, they have one each week. It's about an hour, hour and a half, usually, sometimes shorter. So, and it's all in line with everything I talked about today.
Yeah.
Everything I talked about today pretty much came from the research and information from T-Row and things like that, T-Row Show.
Okay.
So I just put it in there.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put some of these links and some information down, and some folks are asking who you are. That you can read the it says Michael Fathauer. So yeah, Michael Adam Fathauer.
I'm a Mucusless Diet practitioner, and I'm a free spirit, and I'm an American national. I'm not a U.S. citizen, so I've found ways to remove obstruction, legal obstruction, physical obstruction.
Yeah.
Things that are blocking me from living to my fullest potential. That's what I'm about, and I'm not about stepping on anyone on the way there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was the terminology. So American national. That's how you identify yourself and how you want to be addressed.
I belong within the original states of the Union, and I have a nationality. I don't have a citizenship, which is not a nationality.
Right, because you claimed your nationality.
Yeah, people might not know how powerful it is just to do a simple claim. Like if my dog ran away and I never claimed the dog, which actually, honestly, right in front of you guys, I'll tell you, I haven't properly claimed my dog. I haven't taken pictures or put tags on him and stuff like that. And he got out a few months back, and I was nervous because I knew I never claimed him. So if I put a public legal notice in one of the newspapers, that works. I can have a description of the dog, the address, whatever, and then once it's published or claimed and not rebutted, then it stands, and then it's my dog.
Yeah.
So I would use that to establish chain of title to the tangible dog.
Yeah. And so that's some of what I want to get into. The next time we talk, we'll get a little deeper into some of these mechanics because then the question is, so if people want to take the next step, if somebody was saying, okay, well, how do I liberate myself and remove these legal obstructions, what would you tell them? Where should they start in
with
terms
the T-Row
of
show, and also because the T-Row show, they have links in there. Everything the T-Row show talks about, they have a link for everything. They don't just talk. They have a link for everything. They back everything up. So you'll enjoy that. And when you listen to the T-Row show, you'll find out about how to declare a resident, or how to do a resident declaration. You'll learn the process of becoming an American national with the original states of the Union. You'll learn the importance of chain of title. If you drop a receipt on accident and you try to return something, you instantly have chain of title issues, and you're going to have issues returning a product at a store. So
yeah.
So this is about, like the Mucusless Diet healing system, that's about restoring your chain of title to your physiology. It's about you have an obligation to your health, basically. So you have a right to heal yourself and things like that. And did anybody stop any of you from finding the Mucusless Diet healing system? I mean, there might be a lot of strong suggestions that it's not going to work or whatever, but did you end up getting here? You have a right to this information.
Right.
All of this information discussed, you have a right to it.
Right. And that's and what I brought up earlier, which is just really making me very unsettled and angry is the forcing of kids to, because you can have whatever belief you have about the whole vaccination thing, which we practice a Mucusless Diet healing system. We don't even need to get into it, all the details. People, they're way more educated on the details. I don't care about the details because I know I'm not into it, and the people I'm associated with, we're not into it, and we believe people should have we believe human rights. The international law believes people should have the liberty to do what they want with their bodies and the bodies of their children.
Absolutely.
And so to have an entity that is an unauthorized entity force you and say, we will remove your liberty if you do not do this, if you do not pump your body full of poison. I mean, this is worse, so much worse than a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of people complain about a lot of stuff. The outrage that there should be, I'm not even seeing the outrage. There's been things that have happened and I'm like, who cares? And on my Facebook all day there will just be just this, just stuff, people talking about stuff just all day. Where's the outrage for this? This is...
Well, the people actually have to learn how to be outraged first. They have to identify and diagnose events and things around them.
Right.
Like I used to eat meat with no problem. I used to enjoy it, and it felt natural or whatever. And then I learned that there was other ways of eating and other ways of healing the body, and it's as simple as it is,
Right.
So yeah, this is the TROShow.com. This is these guys are professional. These are some of the most honorable people that are behind the T-Row Show and the information.
Yeah. I just shared the link for that. If you're watching live in the live feed, I just put the link, and then I'll put the link in the description once it's all done. So let's take a quick look at the chat, and we'll kind of skim through, because there's a lot of things, but we'll just see. We'll catch some of the highlights.
Yeah, I didn't look at them so that I didn't get distracted, but I definitely want to see them.
Right. Let me bring up the right. Okay. All right. So we got it up here. We got Obacon chiming in right up the top. It says,
what's up, Obacon?
We are up and running, indeed. And Obacon says he's got some good pictures of mucoid elimination. So that's beautiful. We'll do something with those.
Yeah, we'll have a contest at the celebration day where we'll have first, second, and third.
Right. Then see, Vibrational says, don't you hate it when someone with diabetes tells you how to eat and says ridiculous things like meat hasn't killed me, etc.? I mean, anybody with anything, anybody, when anybody says that, whether they have been told they have something or not, diagnosed with something by the medical association members. It's association. I love that. But yeah, man, it's at a certain point you just have pity, and just sad, and just kind of, because all you can do is be a living example, share the information, and hope that they will, if not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 10 years. I mean, that's the attitude I have. There's people that I talked to about the diet 12 years ago that now, after they've lived some life and they've gone through some illnesses and whatever they've gone through, now they're ready. Now they're ready to hear what I have to say and to take some of this information seriously. So it's definitely something where, in my opinion, for me, I have an obligation to share, and I feel like those of us that practice a diet and are going down this path, there's an obligation to share to a certain extent. At a certain point, it's like giving back. This concept, again, with the United States, a corporation, a lot of people have this idea that everybody should serve in some capacity. There's some people that this idea everyone should serve at some length of time in the military, the corporate military, or everybody should do. Some people have this feeling within their religious association that you should serve a certain amount of time and tithe and tell people, evangelize, share this information with that, the belief system with other people. So I feel that way about the Mucusless Diet, that this is something that at a certain point there's an obligation to at least help, if get this information and get it out there.
Charity starts at home, so I'm sure that once you knew it worked or worked for you and improved your life, then you were able to then help other people.
Right. Let's see. The NATAP says the saliva in the mouth really destroys a lot of the germs in the mouth. Let's see. Dan says, if they can take your child, whose child is it? Not yours. If it were,
I just said earlier that
right.
it's property being traded on the stock exchange.
Right. Yeah.
Through that birth certificate.
Yeah. If it were, you would have full say over the child, which clearly is not the case. And you yourself are also not, quote, owned by yourself. You are part of the country, of the legal nation, of the country club, actually by your own consent. Let's see. Rosanna says, learning German new medicine helps you realize that we are not benefiting our species by getting vaccinated.
I have a friend with me that would like to just share just a quick little thing about how the jails and prison systems work.
Oh, okay.
If everyone's up for that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Hey, how you doing, everyone?
What's going on?
Yeah. So a lot of people do not understand how these jails and prisons work. Most of them are private, privately owned. They have stock shares and privately owners. And the thing is, when you get arrested, when anybody gets arrested in any of these U.S. Private company courts, what happens is the cops are usually the witness for the prosecutor. In reality, it's not a court whatsoever. It's just a bank playing court. So what happens is that the moment someone's arrested, before anything, the cops and the judges and the lawyers, they all sit down and they negotiate on what they're going to fine you on. So you're already going to have a fine way before you're found guilty of the fine. And they do that for a reason. The reason why they do that is because they hold people as a mortgage-backed security, meaning they're holding them for collateral for the fine that they'll find them guilty for later. The reason why they do that is because they take that fine and it's an imaginary number, and what they do is they place it in escrow. Once it's in escrow, they can now loan 9/10 of it out to the biggest bidding investors on the stock market. So what's going on is it's a misappropriation of funds that's being pulled through the stock market, and most of the time it's going into these judges' retirement accounts, 401ks, and pensions. So this is how essentially it works. The whole thing is a bank, and so you have the prosecutor. Well, the prosecutor is bidding the court to accept the case, right? And it's all bond. In the scriptures, if you read on, it says it takes an account of two to witness an account, or two to witness an account, right? So there's the first person, which is the principal, and the two people witnessing it, right? So the prosecutor is bidding the case onto for the case to be sold onto the stock market, right? So his signature would go on a bid bond, right? The judge, he is a broker. He's the one that brokers the account onto the stock market. So he's the banker playing judge, and his signature would go on the payment bond, And then you have a performance bond. The contracts offer acceptance performance consideration. There has to be a performance, right? And so the performance comes from your attorney or your lawyer. There has to be a performance on it. So in reality, it's your attorney or your lawyer that signs you up for jail time. People don't know that. And their signature would go on the performance bond. And that's what would sell the bonds afloat onto the stock market. So everybody is being held as collateral for all these securities being invested on the stock market. And they can make a $300 fine turn into $500 million. So when it comes down to you having a case against you with these people, and they either find you guilty and make $500 million in the course of 20 years, or they dismiss the case and they have to pay out of the case out of their own pocket, meaning the prosecutor pays for it. It's actually a known expression when people go into court and they look at the prosecutor and they say, "I hope you brought your checkbook with you today," because they're letting them know that they're paying for the case.
Right.
Because they've gone and invested onto the stock market. Those people are investors, and they're going to want their money. And those investors, they're probably a little more dangerous than those people in the de facto courts. And a lot of people don't understand how this stuff works, but it doesn't matter what the judges say. It doesn't matter what the sheriff says. It doesn't matter what any of those people say. What really matters is what the underwriters say, because it's the underwriters for the insurance companies that writes all this underwriting insurance policies under everything on the U.S. side. So if a claim goes through and the underwriters reverse something, that's what they do. And it's a fact that the judges and the sheriffs and all that, they don't get on the bad side of the underwriters. They know what that means for them. And so when you're understanding how this this system works, you understand that it's all private company, which a private company cannot be a public government, because it has to do with profits and gain rather than justice, equality, and tranquility. So you got a lot of people that are being railroaded and trafficked into a private company that they're not even a part of, and then they're incarcerated, which is considered torture. It's called pain compliance. So all these people have a right to claim file charges as torture or pain compliance against these people, and criminal international trespasses and all. They just have to know what they're doing, and they have to make the right claim. They have to do a resident declaration. They have to publish their entity as doing business as within the states of the union. They have to sign a bilateral social compact agreement. If they don't sign one, well, they have no standing, they have no rights. There has to be an obligation for you to have a right. For an example, right? You have to feed yourself or you're going to starve and die. The obligation is feeding yourself. So you have the right to hunt, you have the right to grow food, you have the right to barter or trade or buy food. That's a right because you have the obligation to feed yourself. Without any obligations, you have no rights. So when it comes to a social compact, you have to create the obligation, and you have to create it bilateral, which means two people come together and they both agree, they both have freedom of speech. They both agree bilaterally that they won't violate each other's freedom of speech. And that's an agreement, right?
Right.
There's signature parties to it, so that's that they cannot come back later and say, well, I didn't sign that, I'm not a party to that. Well, there's your signature.
Because basically, in summary, we're talking about illegitimate entities that masquerade as governments that, by way of the noble myth of their power, we are turning control over to them.
Well, we do so when we remain silent, allow them to classify us as their members.
Yeah, we have to correct the record. And when you do claims and publications, you're correcting the record and changing that. Someone could say, Professor Spira, let me see here, you're funny, you're tall, and you're stupid. And you could say, I'm not funny and tall, and just like completely let the term stupid stick to you, kind of thing. I don't know. It's just you got to rebut things. Or,
Right.
disassociate yourself with it. You don't want to be anywhere near the liability or things that are illegal and things like that. Could you go back on the images? I want to close with one of these images. It was the one that was it had a red bar across it, like a highlight.
Okay. All right. Because we do
we
do need to wrap up, because I know we've been, because I know how these conversations, once you get to going, then it's going, but it's, then it can start losing people, and such.
Yeah.
Always try to come
image
back
was
to the
perfect.
simplicity and things that people can really grab, like, oh yeah, I've had that experience, or yeah, I have that in my pocket.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So okay, for the simplicity of all this stuff, once you have a little bit of education under your belt, it's as simple as making a claim.
Well, yeah, because this is what's happening in these private courts, and this is why you have to correct the record, right? What's going on is that they bring you in. The prosecutor is the trustee, right? And they placed you in the position as trustor, right? And the trustee manages the account, manages the case, right? Which is why he's the bidder.
Right there.
And the trustor gifts. He's there to gift somebody. Because when you look at international law, confiscation is illegal as hell, right? Seizure is illegal as hell. They're not allowed to do it. So what it becomes, right, is it becomes these sheriff's offices and these police departments are a military occupancy, violating the laws of armed conflict by attacking civilians, most of the time separating families, and done so on behalf of a foreign power, which is the Pope. It's a foreign monarch. In the very definition, that's treason. It's treason. There's no denying it. The evidence is all there, and they're all involved. If they know it or not, they're committing treason. So there has to be something that cleans this up, because it's going to get pretty ugly if it doesn't. Because everyone that goes in there, they don't know that they're there to gift the Pope. And so when you go into these courts, you have to correct the record. See, now they have you as trustor, and you're supposed to be trustee of the person. So you would go there and say, the trustee for the person is here, and the beneficiaries have already been named.
Which we can,
and this is stuff that we got, because there's a lot of terminology, and the average person listening, actually, I know they don't know none of this. A lot of this. So we got to come back to it, because that's a whole. Just talking about trustees and trusteeship. That's an episode. That's just. So
in closing, this is an image of an American national that got dragged into or forced into association, or they tried to force him into association into those courts. And right there it says non-citizen, non-resident alien to the U.S. So.
And is this someone that you know, or that you just knew of? You just studied this case.
I'm in social contact with them. I don't know them personally. I know that they are an American national.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, because this person did things the right way. So when they were brought up on whatever I don't know what the charge is here, or what the circumstance under which he found himself in an illegitimate court, but they threw it out. It looks like here.
Yep. If you're, then that goes back to the betting process. If they can't establish that you're one of theirs, then their laws don't apply. And so that's what happened here. So I know this was a lot for everybody, and I didn't learn this stuff overnight, and I'm still learning, Like, you can hear Adam speaking, like, at a different level than I understand what he's saying, but I don't speak the same way. But he really understands this stuff.
Yeah. This is getting into, like we saying, the see people, because we'll throw that concept out there of, where people will say, like, okay, well, we are an occupied people, or we are enslaved, or we are whatever, and that type of tagline tends to be thrown around, but the details, the as you said, the chain of title, these the concepts of associations and the entities and the corporation, all these things, to start to unwind it, to actually see what that means to be occupied, to not be at liberty. To what does that actually mean? To start to unravel some of this stuff is I mean, at least that's my goal.
Right. And then also this information. If people out there want to create a mucusless diet society or private membership with land and like a little township or whatever, those things can be done. And if it's put into place the right way, you won't have any issues. You can grow whatever you want, build things without building permits, all that stuff, because you have to separate yourself. So I just wanted to mention that, because that's where we could go.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be nice to walk outside and just wave to your neighbor, knowing that he's not firing up the grill in a few minutes with.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or, whatever. All the other things that we're looking for could be there.
Right. And so let's do a couple more comments here. Dan left a lot of comments. He had said a couple interesting things. He said, well, this was back when we were first talking about the sovereign citizen. He said, well, sovereign citizen is anyone who still appears as a citizen but wants or claims to be sovereign. If you want out and have nothing to do with it all anymore, one really should get rid of everything, passport, everything with your name on it.
Yeah, but then if you get rid of everything, you're stateless, and you're even worse off. If you're if you're going as a U.S. citizen, you as bad as it could be, they would still like protect you sometimes if you're in another country and you're stuck and all that stuff. But sovereign citizen is not a term you want to affiliate yourself with, or the term sovereign, because they campaign against that stuff. Right. So the information I've shared with you is at the depths. It's at the ocean floor. It's calm. It's never changing. It's unwavering. And then all the other terms like sovereign citizen and a lot of the stuff the company's pumping out is just constantly changing and always moving around. It's not anchored in any truth. Yeah,
because it attracts the extremists. I'm gonna do a whole episode on just extremism, because we deal with a lot of folks that are, especially folks that have done the extreme things and that they thought was associated with what we do, and it's not. And then they come back and see that we're actually right down the middle, that we're not promoting and preaching things that are extreme, so that's a thing, that those terms, they get hooked in by the extremists, the ones that that say, if you get pulled over by the cops, don't there's all the like, just put your thing down and
you put your left foot out.
Well, they say like, just have a couple inches and read, you can read from a script, and it's like, now it's good to know some of that. I'm not saying, it's good to know, am I being detained, and am I free to go? Yes. Like, I'm not saying don't study that, but there's videos of some of these folks, and after you say that, they distinctively use that term as they're exposing these people. They use that terminology. Another sovereign citizen gets their car bashed in by the cops and brought out because they were just being just idiots. They were thinking,
being belligerent.
Yeah. It was like, it didn't even need to go down like that.
Yeah. So Dan mentioned if you want out and you have nothing to do with it all anymore, one really should get rid of everything, passport, everything with your name on it. And if you do that, you're going to be stateless. You have to have somewhere to go before you're leaving there. And I think what he is trying to accomplish with there is not to associate with them so that those laws don't affect him.
Right.
But if he's not in another sovereign body politic or bilateral social compact, or in a national government with one of the states of the Union, the original states of the Union, or if he's not a part of the original states of the Union, whether he's read it or not right now, the T-Row show will get people up to speed. But you need to have somewhere to go. You need a body or people that are going to protect you and also hold you accountable so that you don't harm them. So
yeah. Because see, we
have passports. We have passports, we have driver's international driver's license, we have all those things. But see, when he says removing your name, what you got to do is you got to reestablish and republish and reclaim what that name means and how it's being used. Because I in the introduction it says Michael Adam Fathauer, PMA.
PMA, yeah.
I do all my legal business. I do it through a private membership association.
Right.
And I deal with my members only. It creates its own jurisdiction within the private membership. And as long as I don't harm anybody, nothing nefarious is going on, I can do whatever I want, and so can the member.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's yeah. So that was what I wanted to. Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll
that was
hush
pretty
up.
interesting. I'm sorry.
But let's see. Let's see. We got Fat Vegan 01 said, yes, brother. AMA created and owned the concept of diseases, but they don't know the cause to none of them, so they can keep them. Well, they don't want to know the cause. I mean, and if they do, they definitely they it's not in their business interest as a corporation that makes money. It's not in their interest to have those, cheap cures, expensive treatments. Yeah. But not things that people can be taught how to do and heal a lot of things. That's not in their interest at all. Let's see. Fat Vegan says, headed toward the mucusless practice. My profession and business with the iridology, so I love all of the info on law and claiming my natural rights. Yes. And
that's a whole other discussion that you'll learn about on the T-Row show is about natural law and what it is. I won't touch on it now, but they're onto something there, and there's something there for them to learn about natural law, and it'll blow their mind. It's real simple. You just have to, listen to the podcast on natural law.
Yeah. So this is So I mean, we got into some stuff today. We got into it, and I encourage folks to go back over this one and check this one out again and research the terminology. It's like, because every time if you hear a word, because I do it all the time, and it's a reflex for me. If I hear a word, even a word that I might have looked up before, but if there's a word that I'm not, like, if I can't just say a succinct definition of it immediately, I look it up. And I might look up the same word 10, 15, 20 times and read it and meditate on the definition. So a word like trustee, boom, I'm going to look that up. What's the etymology of it? What's the definition? What's different definitions of it? What's older definitions, newer definitions? Study the word. Study the word. You don't have to study my interpretation of the word or another professor's interpretation of the word. You study the word and come up with your own interpretation of the word. Now we're talking about some real education that you do, that you can do for yourself. That's the work. But that's the work a lot of people don't want to do. They want it tied up in a bow and say, okay, here's what you need to know. Like, no, study this stuff. We have all these words that we study the word and then look at the way the word is being used in practice. How is it understood within the context of a culture? There's different definitions. A cultural definition is going to be different from a legal definition. It's going to be different from a scientific definition. It's going to be different from a social scientific definition. And so I'm an advocate of words and studying words. And for me, that's how I learn. When people want to try to give me credit for different things, and says I'm just someone that just tries to study and understand different things, and especially words, because whether you're in the sciences, the social sciences, law, whatever you're in, I would say because the foundation of all this, even these things that we're talking about, human rights, what are these contracts, the foundation of all this is words. And so why not, if we're going to begin to understand these things in a holistic manner, then we got to start understanding the words that make up these larger concepts, that the word that makes, that's why some of these ancient texts have the word as being the thing that created life. You know, the words, getting into the words, the definitions. So that's my thing for this, you know, to put that out there. There's a lot of people that are not going to understand a lot of different things. I'm learning myself. But the way that we can begin to learn on our own and get some command over this kind of information is to really get into the words, you know. And the same goes with Mucusless Diet and naturopathy. That's why with the e-course, you know, I spend a lot of time with vocabulary. You know, Eric doesn't really do that in the original Mucusless Diet. That's something I've tried to bring to the table because I think it's important to isolate the words and analyze them and meditate on them and study and understand them. So that's my contribution.
Yeah, I agree. It was the words in the Law of Nations from 1758 that sparked the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, so it's very, very, very powerful. You know, words, you know, etymology. That's why, you know, I tell you, get into etymology. You know, just a lot can be understood by getting into the original meaning of words and looking at how those meanings have been changed over the years. So, with that said, I want to thank Michael Adam Fathauer, PMA, for his just his time, man, and you know, bearing with us with his technical issues and computers and the stuff that we went through to make sure that we got this program to happen. And you know, I know this was going to be a longer podcast, but everything that's in here is important. I mean, this is because we don't just talk about revolution, and we don't just march, and we don't just put our hand in the air. We want to understand the DNA of liberation and the steps to take to be able to create what we want to create. And so it starts with this, you know, it don't start with having a gun in your, you know, all these people that want to have their stockpile of weapons. It don't start with that.
Yeah, those are the ones that want it quick. No transition, no
study. And those are the ones that, you know, that they're going to get themselves killed or someone else killed. This ain't about that. This is about, like you said, doing things in such a way where it's permanent change. And if you do it the right way and you're not rushing, you're not saying, okay, tomorrow I'm saving up my money and we're gonna get some land and we're gonna create a, you know, like, no. This is about really, really understanding this stuff and being able to create something for yourself and for others who want to associate with you and who you want to associate with. So, yeah. So I thank you. You got any last words for the brothers and sisters out there?
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. And when we got cut off yesterday, a few people were asking what happened, and it made me feel good. You know, not to the head or whatever, no ego kind of thing, but just like I'm in the right spot. I'm participating in things that I'm adding something to, and I appreciate. I just appreciate being a part of it. I appreciate being on the show, and when I mentioned the pickles, I have an alternative to the pickles. I just fill a jar up with lemon juice, and I put cucumbers and spices and onions and stuff in there, and that's my non-vinegar pickle. So I figured out how to get around that.
Okay.
If I really wanted it.
Right.
Cause yeah. I guess that's all I have.
All right.
I'll close with pickles after all this international.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Well, I definitely really appreciate it. This is, you know, we just taking things we didn't even get to talk about. You know, the Eric Day celebration. You're gonna be doing some food demonstrations, and we'll talk more about that. You know, yeah, you're gonna do some food demonstrations and preparing the food for the event.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come out, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll be participating and helping with preparing food. If you guys want to help prepare food or hang out or talk or whatever, you know, come on out. Come see everybody else and plug in, as they like to say. Professor Spira likes to say plug in.
Right.
I'm actually I'm actually like being over strict right now, but safely over strict, so that I almost like I'm not fasting for 40 days, but I'm doing whatever I can to make sure I don't show up with as much physical baggage, so I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we do that kind of stuff a lot, where these kind of events will inspire us to either, fast or to just kick up our game, eat a little cleaner, be a little more mucus free, do a couple little extra enemas, whatever it is for each person. So that's one reason that we put these things together too, is because we do try to rise to the occasion. And so that's an important aspect of the
breathe
community.
A little air.
Yeah. Breathe a little air. Yeah. Get down tonight. And, so all right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and please, share the video and share the stuff on the website. All those kinds of things. Just help us get this information out there. So I'm Professor Spira, and this has been the Mucus-free Life podcast. And until next time, peace, love, and breath.